Hi everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I'm going to use some ready mixed paint. As you know, if you've watched me for a while, I tend to always mix my own paints out from the tube with either water or pouring medium, or both. But today I'm just using a pre-mix. I will show you the colours in a minute. They're all by Pebeo. And I want to create something that infuses all those colours together, but in a different way. So I'm going to explain what I mean. I'm going to take you down so you can see the colours. I'm going to start the process and then I'm going to talk through what I'm thinking and what I'm going to do. I want to create some details in the centre of the canvas, but as we span out and edge out across from the middle to the edges, I want some whispery effects, but I'm going to do that with a sponge. So let's see if it works. I've got the idea in my head, but as always, it's an experiment and it's about having fun and seeing how we can evolve. So I'm glad you're here with me. Let's see what we can create. So here's my colour palette for today. I'm using the Pebeo pouring bottles, ready mixed pouring paint, and I will list all those colours in my description box below, so always remember to expand that. But as you can see, we've got a silver, we've got a magenta, we've got a metallic purple, we've got a light violet, a blue turquoise, metallic cobalt blue, and a gold. And I might actually just mix things up a little bit with some white titanium cell activator. So I'm really excited for this. Let's go. So first of all, I'm using the purples as my base coat. I don't necessarily want too much of a flow of paint on the surface, but I want enough so when I swipe, the paint will glide across the surface area a little bit easier than if it was just a raw canvas. So I'm just preparing the base coat now with my paintbrush. So I'm going to start directly in the centre of the canvas, and I'm going to take one colour at a time and layer each colour down the centre, starting at the top, pouring the paint out of the tube and ending at the bottom of the canvas. So as I said, I've purchased these ready mixed paints by Pebeo, and if you want to use exactly the same colours, I will list the details in my description box below. So whenever you see one of my videos, you can expand the information, and within that text gives you some information about the colours that I use, the consistencies and ratios that I use, and so much more information. So don't forget to always check that out. I mixed up a cell activator, which is Australian floetrol, with some white titanium by Amsterdam, with a ratio of 1:4, 1 part paint to 4 parts activator. And I'm going to use that at the centre of my piece when I swipe. That's going to create some cells and some lacing. I'm just adding a little bit more of the purple, just to give me a bit more of a flow. And I'm starting off with some kitchen towel, dipping it into the paint and then dragging it from the centre to the outer edge. I'm going to do that a couple of times, but as you'll notice, I don't feel that's really working well for me. It's probably because the paints that I'm using are a little bit thicker than what I'd normally use for a swipe, so I'm reverting to my palette knife, and as you can see, I can do much more of a larger area swipe with the palette knife than I can with the paper. So this is really about ensuring that the palette knife is immersed into the paint before I drag it across the canvas. So with each swipe, I start off in the centre to ensure that the palette knife drags some of that cell activator, the white paint, on top of all those other paints too, from the centre to the outer edge. And each time I do clean my palette knife because I want clean colours as I swipe from the centre to the outer edge. Right at the beginning, I said I wanted to create some wispy effects, but this time using a sponge. And it's also about creating a different texture. So I'm using my sponge along those edges, and I'm just going into the centre slightly on some of those corners and some of those edges themselves. There's no set pattern to this. I'm just using my sponge and really having a look at the overall composition as I do this. But all I'm doing is placing the sponge into the paint and just slightly and gently dabbing it into the paint and then off again. That's going to create some blending and some texture within this piece. And you can see here that it's leaving some bubbles, but I do pop those with my torch. I think I'm done with the sponge, and as I said, I just use my torch to pop any of those bubbles that have been made using the sponge. I pop those bubbles so it doesn't crack when it starts to dry. That's the whole reason I use my torch across the piece to pop any air bubbles that may have appeared. I can't wait to show you this detail, but first of all, I'm going to use my sponge again just to tweak some of those areas. And then I'm going to use the sponge to also cover the edges of this canvas. I'm using some of the leftover paint, dabbing the sponge into my paint, and then along each of those edges. I'm going to show you a close-up now of the wet version. I'll take you in so you can see those edges that I've done with the sponge. I've just dabbed the sponge along those edges, and I'm going to show you some of the details now of the creation on top, some of the patterns that are formed, and I really like how this colour palette has really worked together. An infusion of colour using the swipe with a sponge. I'm going to let this piece dry, and then I'll take you in for a closer look at the dry version. So are you ready to see the dry version? Here we go. It's fully dry. I really love these ready mix paints. They have a bit more of a glossy finish once they're dry, but I will still varnish each piece. I use a gloss varnish, a spray varnish by Winsor & Newton. If you've enjoyed this video, please think about giving it a thumbs up. And if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, it's free to do, so hit that subscribe button. I'd love for you to be here on this journey with me. I just want to say a big thank you to each and every one of you for all of your support, and I really hope I get to see you again in the next video. I'll leave you with some close-ups of this dry version, and I really hope I get to see you again soon. Have a great week, everyone. Take care. Bye.